Hola a todos y feliz fin de semana. I hope everybody had a relaxing time. This week we start figuring out the end to our work between preterite and imperfect, and I want to show you guys what this particular handout that I shared with you, what it will do to help you in evaluating when to use preterite and when to use imperfect. So just a couple of notes so that we're on the same page. This week starts on the 5th. Tomorrow we are going to start preterite versus imperfect, constructions with ser, and some adverbs. You will also submit your first composition, so that's why the composition is going to use preterite and imperfect throughout, and it is very important that you reflect on this particular video with these hints and helpful tips on deciding which tense to use in particular. Another brief reminder, you have your chapters 1 and 2 assignment for our book reading. So far you've done a fabulous job with the preliminary activities, and now it's time for us to get reading. So I will be there's the post with the PDF for you. If you're like me and you want to print it out, take some notes, it's great practice to see it on paper. Sometimes when you're reading on the computer, you can get distracted by so many other factors that you're truly not paying attention there. When you're reading, however, your computer or your phone set up to a dictionary is very helpful, so that you don't waste too much time trying to decipher what the meaning of one idea is. You have some easy access to those particular words. But again, if you are doing it on paper, there's also a chance for you to highlight, look at the preterite, look at the imperfect, kind of make some notes of, oh, this particular thing, or questions. I love, love, love when you guys send me questions. For easy access, I guess, for the while you're reading would be to just take a picture with your phone or a screenshot if you're doing it on the computer, and send me an email and say, okay, profesora, I'm reading this particular page, and in this section I'm just not getting what they're talking about, and I can guide you through some techniques on how to understand better that piece of the reading, and help you get through the big picture. Okay, don't get too hung up on the words that you don't understand. Look for the bigger picture. Are you understanding the story in general? Details are great, but it's not the end of the world if you don't understand every single word. Okay, so those are my few reminders, and so I wanted to jump into our little flat book thingy. So you guys had, okay, sorry, I'm just trying to look through. Okay, so you had the paper, and basically if you fold it, it makes this little white flip book. And so you can cut it, and there's two different ways of doing this. And it depends on what kind of learner you are. You can put the different categories in the front, or you can put them in the inside so that you don't see it, and then you can actually test yourself. So let's go through the categories and what they mean. So please ignore these page numbers. These are from an old textbook that I was using previously. These are not our page numbers. So when do I use the imperfect? Here's some ways to remember how to use it, and that would be Dr. Luate. Dr. Luate is going to be very handy because D is for descriptions. So anything that we've talked about with the verb ser. So, yo soy una profesora, o tú eres un estudiante, right? That's in the present. Now, because we're talking about the past, we are describing. Nosotros éramos estudiantes. Ella era la profesora de español. So any descriptions with the verb ser are going to be using the imperfect. The imperfect with repeated actions. What does this mean? It means that there were things that were a habit in someone's past. So, for example, many of us rode our bikes, but we don't know exactly how many times. We just know that we used to always ride a bike. It was something that we used to do, that there was a repetition of that. So a repeated action. It could be any verb, it doesn't matter. It's going to be in the imperfect. Location. So location, verb estar, for how you feel and where you are. Always use the verb estar. Location. So when you are reading a book or you're hearing a narration and they're telling you the setting of the story, where the characters were, where this took place, all those location things are going to be expressed in the imperfect. Emotions with the verb estar. So for how you feel, right? So any descriptions of a character's feelings or a situation or the setting and all those emotions that come with that, right? Was it a sad day? Or was the character excited? Or were the circumstances, whatever they were, challenging? I don't know. Any type of emotions are going to be expressed with the imperfect. Weather, all the different weather expressions, hacer, tener, estar, anything that's going to describe the weather is going to be in the imperfect. Age, so this is very important for your essay, correct? The composition that you're writing. When I was 5 years old, I used to do this on snow days. Your age is going to be expressed in the imperfect. Incompleted actions are similar to a repeated action, okay? In that there used to be things we used to do, but we cannot pinpoint when we started it or when we ended that particular action. We just know that these things used to happen in our lives, right? We used to eat eggs on Sundays. I don't know. Whatever it was an action that never had like a concrete ending. And then anytime that you're expressing time, okay? On Saturdays, I used to wake up early to watch cartoons, or on those snow days, it was always, I don't know, like around 10 a.m., all our friends used to get together to play in the snow, or whatever time setting is expressed with the imperfect. So again, a couple of options. You can write the descriptions on the outside. You can write them on the inside to kind of test you. However, one thing that I do recommend is that whichever way you do it, when you open it, you make some examples. So for example, on D, which we said it was descriptions, ella era bonita. Or for a repeated action, siempre comía el cereal. Okay, maybe for example, location, la casa estaba en Chicago. An emotion, yo estaba muy triste. Weather, hacía calor o tenía frío. For age, tú tenías 5 años. And again, these are just my examples, silly examples. You can do whatever ones. Just, it always helps to have a visual of what that category looks like. Incomplete action, corríamos en el verano. And for time, eran las 5. Okay, so this kind of concludes our kind of tricks to remember how to use the imperfect. Now, the imperfect is quite helpful that only has 3 irregular verbs, ser, ir, and ver. So my recommendation to you is to go ahead and write them down in here so that you have everything accessible in one piece of paper. And maybe you can just write down the conjugations if you don't remember them well. Some accents in here are very, very important, so you might want to do that. Okay? So that kind of wraps up when to use the imperfect. Now, you did lots of great work regarding the preterite, and again, please ignore these page numbers. But when do we use the preterite? And we're going to use Kobe. Kobe is going to help us remember when to use the preterite. If you've noticed, C, B, and E are highlighted because they're going to be similar situations. A completed action, okay? A completed action, something that was done, okay? For example, once you take the test, that's done. Once you ran the race, it's done. A beginning action, okay, is something that in a way you can't keep beginning, okay? So you started the race, or you started going somewhere. That start situation cannot be any different than a completed action. It's done. And then the ending actions, right? So let's continue with the theme of the races. You ended the race, okay? You can't keep ending it. No, no, no. You cross the finish line, it's done and over with. So notice that there's a lot of ways in which completed actions, beginning actions, and ending actions are simply actions that are done, that they have a definite beginning and a definite ending. Okay? That's when you're going to use the preterite. When your actions don't have a definite beginning and a definite ending, that's when you go with the Dr. Lewade either repeated action or an incomplete action, and you're using the imperfect. Okay? Our next category for using the preterite is ordered actions. Okay, so what does that order action mean? Is that, for example, on those snow days, right? What were the things that you did with your friends? Oh, well, first we had breakfast. Second, we would get dressed. We got dressed to go outside. Later, we played in the snow. After lunch, we watched movies, and then at night we ordered pizzas. So there is an order to your day of all those activities that you did that were completed. Okay, so that's your ordered actions. And then interrupting actions. Okay, and what is an interrupting action? Basically, when you have a setting of, let me kind of tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a young girl who was beautiful and loved walking in the forest. One day, the wolf appeared. So if you can kind of picture it, I was using the imperfect to kind of set up the background to this story, and suddenly something interrupted that description. And that interruption was done by the wolf appearing. So anything that is interrupting the flow of an activity, that is always going to be using the preterite. Okay? Again, you can write them outside, you can write them in the inside, but definitely make some examples in the back. And then you have the other little flip book with all the irregulars for the preterite, which they're not going to fit all in here since, unfortunately, the preterite has so much work for us when it comes to the irregulars. So I hope that these two particular handouts that I shared with you are going to be helpful in your journey of really mastering the idea of preterite and imperfect. Remember that it's a skill that is going to take quite a bit of practice, but I'm here to give you the tools to not feel overwhelmed and to work through it. And if you have any questions, don't forget that tomorrow we have office hours from 11 to 1 via Blackboard Collaborate. And if those times don't work, please don't hesitate to email me and set up different office hours. I will do my best to accommodate you. Just make sure that you email me with ample time for me to get back to you with a particular time. Okay? So have a great end to your weekend, and don't forget that our test is coming up, our composition's coming up, and the work with our book is coming up. Every time that you do a little bit at a time, you are not going to be overwhelmed. I've broken everything to make it as easy on your schedule as possible. So you just got to work with me, and I'm here to help you with anything. All right? Have a great one and stay in touch. Adios.